Thank you very much. As it was mentioned, my name is Tyler Tunick. I'm a Williams employee based here in Houston, Texas, and I'm honored to present the speakers for the first paper to the stage titled PHMSA Updates Related to Data and GIS. The speakers are Monique Roberts of the PODS Association and Leah Gooding of PHMSA. Blaine Keener is also an author, but not a speaker today.
Look how many people are here, Leah.
Way too early.
It is. Why are y'all all here so early? Anyway, welcome. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Monique Roberts of the PODS Association.
I'm Leah Gooding with PHMSA.
And the first thing that we're going to cover today is a quick safety moment. So because a lot of us are all here together, and especially those of us that are here for the first time, we want to make sure that everybody can help one another. So in PODS, we're a big community and we have a big community effort. So we want to make sure we're looking out for all of our friends here. So if you have an iPhone and also an Android, you have an option to create a medical ID on your phone. So if anything happens, or if you have any allergies or anything, if something happens to you, I know BJ told me that somebody fainted one time at one of the PPIMs, like in the walkway. So just please make sure that if you don't have your medical ID on your phone, or you can write it on your badge if you have any allergies or any medical situations that you need to make sure that your neighbors are aware of. So with that, thank you very much for allowing us our quick safety moment. And then a quick review of the agenda. Leah is going to talk about the PPIM submittal program, as well as the importance of some tips and tricks to avoid errors. She's also going to talk about the Federal Register Notice for Information Collection Change, which really is very, very pertinent and important information because there's going to be a lot of new attributes that everybody's going to need to capture related to data for pipeline safety and compliance. So real quick on PODS, I know I keep saying real quick because the meat of the situation, y'all are all here to talk to Leah, right? To hear from Leah. So PODS is a foundation of shared knowledge. So if I'm going to do the same thing that BJ did. So who here in the room has never heard of PODS before? Oh, that's great. That's just a few of y'all. I'll catch all of you after this session. So PODS is a community that started 25 years ago and actually started with Williams. Williams was the first operator to help us develop that standardization for data. And so we are a community of operators and service companies that come together to create this data model and this standardization of data in order to increase pipeline safety and integrity, as well as to make sure that pipeline data continues to be stored in a fashion that is easily translatable, easily transferable, easily transparent, right? Because that is the key in this new digital age, especially with all of the new rules that PHMSA keeps publishing. Slow down. So with that, I'm going to transition to Leah and let everybody know that one of the best ways to organize your data is in the PODS model, also because one of the versions of PODS is the foundation for PPIMS. So easy peasy lemon squeezy. I'm going to hand it over to Leah, who's going to walk us through what PPIMS is, some tips for your submittals, and then also all of the new attributes that are going to be covered. So I'll hand it off to her. Thanks.
Thanks, Monique. Good morning again. So I'll go over briefly what the PPIMS is. Let's do hands again. Does everybody know what the PPIMS is? Have you heard of it? Have you used the tools?
Anybody has not heard of it?
That's a better question. Okay. All right. Well, great. So the National Pipeline Mapping System is what the PPIMS stands for. This is the GIS database that PHMSA collects from all of the pipeline operators. This data is collected from over 1,600 pipeline operators every single year. Many of you are probably in this room today. We do have to collect this data. This is part of the federal regulations. So the gas transmission GIS data submittals are due every year on March 15th. Our liquid submittals are due every year on June 15th, and there are links to the actual parts of the CFR that require the PPIMS submittals. Within the federal regulations, there's a document reference called the PPIMS Operator Standards Manual. This is available at this link, or it's also available on the PPIMS website. This is really where you'll go to see the basic data requirements, what you need to submit, when you need to submit it, how you need to submit it. But if you are working on NPMS submittals, I also suggest that you look further for the NPMS submission supplemental instructions. This is where you'll really get some ideas on how to translate the conditions in the field into the NPMS data format. Walk you through some common scenarios, the types of questions that we hear on a regular basis. We've covered them in this document, so it's a great resource to take a look at before you give our folks a call. And the last thing I wanted to mention is OSAVE. OSAVE, the Operator Submission and Validation Environment. This is the application, really like a one-stop shop for all of your NPMS submittal requirement actions that you need to take. You can review your current data that's currently in the NPMS. You will upload your data submissions through OSAVE. You can submit notifications of no changes if that's how you are meeting the requirement this year. And then you can also even print submission history. So if you are getting inspected and the inspector asks you to show proof that you are meeting the NPMS submission requirement, go into OSAVE and go ahead and print those records, and that will be exactly what the inspector's looking for. Okay, real quick, I'm going to go through the 5 highest level steps of what we do once we receive your submission. Step 1 is what you're doing. You're in OSAVE, you're uploading a typical data submission. If you're familiar with OSAVE, it includes some scripts that will automatically run through and make sure that you have the correct data fields, you have the correct data values, correct relationships between certain values. If you're submitting a gas transmission pipeline, you should not be reporting that it is a low-stress liquid line, etc. So certain rules like that are outlined in the standards and everything. If you do have any errors, you'll get an email report that outlines what fields and the types of errors that you have. So that's intended to help you get the corrections made and then go through and resubmit and try one more time. And OSAVE also, instead of submitting your metadata separately, it really just gives you a form. So all the elements that are required for the metadata, you just type them right into OSAVE as well. Step 2, that's where the NPMS staff really kick in. And they'll take the data submission and do a more in-depth QC on it. They will be reviewing everything that you entered into OSAVE, not just the GIS data, but the notes that describe what types of changes we need to be looking for, what we should expect or maybe shouldn't expect to see. So when you are detailed in those notes, it helps us get through this step of our process. However, if we're seeing things that don't make sense, we're seeing pipelines that you're not submitting that we expected to see, there's no explanation as to why you're not submitting them. I see no records indicating that you have divested them or anything like that. We need to stop what we're doing. We need to contact you. You need to do more work. You need to submit again. And it takes a lot of everybody's time. So it's really important to consider some of the tips and tricks I'll go into in just a minute here. But if we do find those types of issues, step 3, this is where we make that pause and we reach out to you. So please be responsive. And we are willing to work with people. We want to be able to help you improve your own databases, to identify errors that maybe you had missed. We want to bring those to your attention, not just to get your NPMS box checked this year, but to help improve your data quality as well. So that is important to us.
So Leah, has anybody ever gotten in trouble for giving too much information?
Not for too much information, for being late and for not submitting. There have been fines and there has been enforcement cases, yes.
And the thing you want to avoid.
Too much never.
Right. The thing you want to avoid is that very long, strongly worded email, right?
Yeah. Okay. You know, we want to avoid writing them, right, quite frankly.
Exactly.
You want to avoid reading them.
Exactly.
So I think with a little bit of preparation and knowing what to look for and doing that up front, honestly, we have a great team, but their ability and their tools are no different than yours. And if they can find it, I know you guys can, because I've got faith in all of you guys. I know you guys can do amazing things. So yes, so we'll work with you, but when we see the same issues year after year, we know it's laziness and not necessarily a weakness. I guess laziness could be a weakness, but you know what I mean. All right, moving on to step 4. NPMS staff complete the data submission processing tasks. We go through and we have a number of custom tools that we use to continue with the processing. One of them is a change detection tool. We're taking every pipeline segment that's being submitted each year, comparing the geometry and the attributes to all the segments that are currently in the NPMS from the previous year. May they be segments that you have submitted the previous year, segments another operator submitted the previous year. That's where we start making the connections with the divestitures and the acquisitions. And that will actually help us identify some real fine level errors, really small pieces of pipe that our analysts didn't pick up on when they were just using ArcMap or Pro or something. We'll pick up on some of those issues here, so you may hear from us one more time at this point. Last, we will actually use all the information that you sent. We don't just toss it into our database. We actually use it to build and plan and execute all the changes to our database. So all that information you send us is the biggest input to how we set up to update our NPMS database. And about every 2 to 3 months, we publish an update for all of our stakeholders. And then step 5, what did we put here? Oh, step 5, if you see an issue in your submission, you realize you made a mistake, we'd much rather you proactively reach out to us, and we'll work with you to get that fixed into the system, even if you completed a submission already. So reach out to us. We all want the most accurate possible data for our stakeholders. Next, I'll go into kind of a top 8, just a real quick cover of, hey, think of these things before you make your NPMS submittal. It will make everything easier for you and for us, and you won't get that long email. The first one is to take care to capture your correct revision code. Reviz code is the field attribute name. This is a really common one. The revision code explains to us how that pipeline segment has changed. There is an option to say no change. And oftentimes a lot of segments are not changing. But if you have resegmented it for some reason, or if you have rerouted a pipeline, attributes on it have changed. It is an addition, it's new mileage versus something that's replacing something that was already in the system. These are all really important pieces of information for our tools and our analysts. They feed into our change detection tools. And when the change detection tools don't see the revision codes and the data matching up to the use cases that it expects to see, it's gonna flag the analyst. Someone needs to go in there and look at it, and then they write up that email. Accurately report any acquisitions or changes in operatorship. The OSAVE form, I believe this is one of the images here. The OSAVE form has lots of places to make notes. Recording, hey, we acquired from this operator ID is very helpful for us. Hey, we divested to this operator ID, here's a contact, also very helpful. If we don't have the proper records in PHMSA through the National Registry notifications, we may have to reach out to get some more information from you guys. So if you include that up front, super helpful and very much appreciated. All right, so account for missing pipelines. I touched on this briefly already. That's a big one when, I'd say not quite half the time, but oftentimes when we reach out about a pipeline that's missing and we have no justification for it to be missing, it's, oops, I forgot that pipeline. So it happens, it's understandable, but give it a second look. Take a look at your total mileage, compare it to your annual report. Try to find those missing pipelines, and if there are pipelines missing from your submission for an intended purpose, explain to us maybe where those lines are, maybe give us the system name, tell us the county, something so our analysts can say, yeah, this is validated, I can move on now. And I mentioned the annual reports. We will compare all of your NPMS mileage to your annual report mileage. And anytime we see more than a 5% discrepancy at the state and pipeline type and interstate status level, we're going to contact you guys. That's a red flag that there's got to be some sort of discrepancy either in your NPMS data or on your annual report. And so we compare the two, we'll reach out to you and hope that we'll identify where the error is and you guys can get that corrected, and then we will move on. But as long as those two are not matching, there is a separate reg, I don't have the number off the top of my head, there's a separate reg that requires each operator to use the same OPID for all reporting requirements at PHMSA. So if you're not using the same OPID on your annual report and your NPMS for your pipes, that's a problem. And so we are going to look for that, and your NPMS submission is not going to be accepted until it's matching your annual report. All right, what else do we have here? Reducing unnecessary segmentation. You can understand when you're comparing segment by segment, more is not better. More is not better when you don't need it. Consider when it's necessary for the attributes. GIS, I don't need to go any further there. Accurately describe your company and the submission. This is a question that we've seen messed up more times than I would expect. We're gonna ask you, what does your company operate? Gas transmission, hazardous liquid, both, one or the other? Then what does this submission include? You do have the option, because of the staggered submission dates, you may just be submitting your gas transmission, but you also do operate hazardous liquids, that's going to route your submission in a different way, in a different queue for a different analyst at a different time. So it's important that these questions are answered properly to avoid delays in getting your submission processed and online. All right, I think it's always best to know what to expect before you start. You can look in the NPMS supplemental instructions, you can look in the OSAVE manual. We have a number of YouTube videos that are on the OSAVE page of the NPMS website. Know what to expect so you have the information available when that form comes up and it's asking you that question.
And Leah, we submitted the supplemental instructions and a link to that in the paper. So if you want to be able to access that, you can go into the paper and get the link to the supplemental instructions as well.
Yes, thank you, Monique, that's right. And be careful with abandoned. Abandoned for PHMSA is permanently abandoned. It's not coming back. It's not temporary. So there are issues when you maybe use a different definition and report a line as abandoned when it's not the PHMSA definition. And I'll throw out a secret one, number 8, be responsive to our emails. We will work with you. We will try to help you as much as possible. But when people don't respond to the emails or people say they're going to follow up and they never do, we're wasting our time. I may just be pushing this and escalate it for enforcement because you're not working with me and I'm trying. So be responsive and we'd really appreciate it. If you need some time, talk to us. Talk to us if you need a little extra time. We're willing to work with people as much as possible.
I mean, look how nice Leah is. Y'all want to talk to her, right?
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart.
Don't call me this early in the morning though. Yeah. Only today.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so, wow, it's already going on 28. Okay. I do want to jump into the info collection. If you haven't been around for the last 10 years, you may not have heard that the NPMS is actually submitted to OMB to get approval for a major change to the NPMS information collection. This outlines what attributes we're going to collect, what features we're collecting, basically a major adjustment to the data requirements and the data standards. We have about, I think it turns out to be about 32 new data elements. A lot of pieces of information are maybe collected in multiple fields. That's why how we get the 32 number. It's not only new attributes on the pipes, but a couple new layers related to LNGs. I won't read through them, but this slide right here actually goes through each of the field names. It has a very short description, and it outlines the year when we anticipate to start collecting. So this is not, go ahead, Monique.
Maybe touch on what's green and why things are green and red as well.
Yes.
Can you guys see that there's green up here and then red? Okay.
The coloring. In true cartography fashion, we love color coding things. The green attributes here are the ones that only apply to your gas transmission pipes. The red apply only to your hazardous liquid pipes, and all else apply to everything for the most part. So thank you, Monique. That's a good point. And the reporting year is in the first field. And you'll see a lot of CY 2016. That means your calendar year 2016 data. What you operated during 2016, but that's not due until March 15th or June 15th of the following year.
2026, not 2016.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Time
Look,
flies.
it's that pandemic.
Having
like,
fun.
what happened?
All right.
I feel like, right? I'm still young, right?
Yes. I promise.
Yeah, 2026.
2026, thank you very much. So yeah, the CY 2026 data, you'll be submitting in 27. A number of these elements are CY 27, and then you'll submit those in 28. So there's plenty of time to get ready for this. If you look in the paper, you'll see more details that go into each of these attributes, how we plan on collecting them, the types of values. We have spent many years in public meetings, meeting with operators. I've probably been in a number of your offices with Amy Nelson, if you remember her, 10 years ago when we started talking to you guys about this. Really figuring out what fields, working with PODS to figure out the best way to collect this information. And so you can look in the paper to get that additional information. You can also look at the NPMS website for information about this. There will be a radical increase in the pipeline segmentation as a result of all these additional attributes. So we're aware, and we are currently looking into different submission methods and different tools and trying to consider alternative approaches that we haven't used in the past to kind of make that as easy as possible for not only you, but for our personnel as well. Okay. Let's see. So I mentioned the paper is going to include everything. We've gone through the new attributes. One of the major changes is to the spatial accuracy of the data. I will say many of you are already meeting the new proposed spatial accuracy, which is going to be between plus minus 50 or plus minus 100 feet. Currently, the current standards dating back to 1998 is plus minus 500. But nobody's really submitting data that low of accuracy, so I appreciate that. So hopefully that one won't hurt you guys too much. But all of these attributes, one of the great things about working with PODS is that all of these attributes really have a place in the PODS database already. So Monique, why don't you talk about that?
Guess what? I'm going to talk about PODS some more. Thanks for the transition, Leah.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that the model is built to where operators don't have to worry about whether or not if they've captured all of the important data, all of that is mission critical and is going to be needed for your submittal, and then some, right? And so a couple of things about what's new at PODS is that this year, actually last year, we released the new ILI module, which is great because now you can have one spot to house all of your ILI data, right? Which is just a ton of data, right? Companies have over 500,000 different data points related to their ILI historical data in some cases. And so it's kind of a Herculean effort to be able to organize all of that in one spot. And so now it's just going to make it easier for you to see everything, especially on a map, no matter who you used for your ILI run, right? No matter which tool you used and no matter which company that you used to do that data and to run that analysis. So with PODS 7, we had a lot of objectives that were met, which was to make sure that we had a worldwide deployment. PODS is now in 36 countries with over 200 operators that are using PODS or some version of PODS on their system. And then also, we wanted to make sure that we kept up with the new and changing business requirements around the regs. A lot of companies, you can't keep up with the technology. I mean, you guys are true innovators and come up with incredible things. I mean, 94 papers is incredible how much new innovation and thought leadership, especially this group, has put together. So PODS can't keep up with that, right? But we can keep up with the regulation as long as y'all slow down a little bit. I mean, it's kind of crazy here recently. And that's what we do, right? All of that mission critical data. So with that, I'm not going to go into a lot more of the details. We are building out, right now we have a working group that's building out an integrity management task module. So you'll be able to tell why you performed that dig, right? Was because it was time, because you found an anomaly, because you were doing some opportunistic data capture or whatnot. So you'll have some prescribed business processes in there too. So we have a lot of new resources, data resource centers and regulatory resource centers where you can go into each state and understand what all the regs are for those. The model can support all pipelines. So we have a lot of gas gathering in there as well. The new gas gathering rule requires a lot more data to be housed as well. In fact, the first part of the new gas gathering rule is to identify your start and end points of your system. And a great way to do that is using GIS in the PODS system. So we have a lot of new releases coming out this year. We are going to release utility network and APR for PODS as well. And then, as you can see, this is a base of the new tables for the ILI data as well. And I think we're getting close to time, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. If you have any additional questions, we can ask those to Leah now, not me. And if we don't get to all of the questions, we're going to be at booth 106 that we can talk to you for more info as well. So up here are just some of the value-added benefits for both operators, for our 90 operators and our 75 service companies that benefit from being a part of the PODS community. And then please save the date for April the 25th. We're going to be having our spring forum and our 25th year anniversary. So half of this room, right, was in middle school when PODS started, right? I was not. Okay, and then if they have any questions, this is my information as well as Leah's. And then also if you want a longer version of this presentation, we did that on a podcast. Hey. And so we have the information for that there if you want to just kind of get into the weeds and dig into the data a little bit more and get some more questions from Leah and her team as well. So with that, BJ? Oh, we finished a little bit early. Any questions?
We have about 7 minutes for questions.
Is there a mic that's going to run around? Or? Okay. They're listening to you, Ben. They're waiting for the microphone. Good job.
There we go. Ziad Saad from Rosen. Just a question to Leah, actually, is now that you've been collecting this data for a number of years and you have this massive uniform database, can you comment about some of the benefits, how PHMSA has been leveraging the information, what, safety and otherwise, that you've been coming up with as a result of having this, consolidated database?
Absolutely. One of the biggest uses that every single day our inspectors are utilizing the NPMS to support their inspection planning, support how they are going to be planning their field visits, what they're looking for, their assessments, to get prepared for that, as well as to bring information back from the field and incorporate it with the NPMS database. So in addition to all of the pipelines that you're submitting to us, we also have a number of other pieces of data that we integrate into the system ourselves throughout a lot of our custom processing tools. And one of those is actually mapping the boundaries of your inspection units or your inspection systems, if you're familiar with those processes. So we're able to reference all of your inspection records directly onto the pipes to support some spatial analysis and visualization there as well. The NPMS is oftentimes used to support those rulemaking processes, which I've never heard anybody say it goes too fast before. Yeah. I'm sure they will take that feedback.
It just feels like y'all could have spaced them out a little bit. Like y'all waited 10 years and then bam.
They hold everything and dump it. Yep. Yeah. But supporting those rulemakings, doing some analysis, figuring out what assets are going to be impacted. That's another way that we use the NPMS. Supporting all types of engineering research, talking with our engineers, helping them learn GIS and utilize not only our custom mapping applications to answer their questions, but also they're using GIS tools to do their own analysis, hiring their own teams to do their own spatial analysis. Risk indexes are a big thing right now. Everybody loves a risk index and a dashboard to show it, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to add on to that and mention, I know Blaine submitted and did a presentation of a beta version of a map with socioeconomically challenged areas. So y'all are building maps now too?
Yes, that is correct. Those have not been published to the public yet. We're still working on them, but they are coming soon. So DOT first established their own risk index for transportation-related factors of socioeconomic burdened areas is the term that they're using now. And so we associated those with accident and incident reports and locations and built some dashboards to make a connection between these burdened communities and where accidents are happening to identify trends. And that is all going to be made public for everybody to take a look at. You can analyze the data on a map. You can also, excuse me, you can also just download the data in an Excel spreadsheet to do your own analysis. So we really wanted to be as transparent as possible, always pushing for transparency. We want to share as much data as we can. And so get that into the hands of everybody to see what you guys can find in the data and what changes you can make in public safety as well.
So one of the added benefits of being a PODS member is that you have access to all of our data resource centers. So we have hundreds of free, live, curated data that you can download, and it's all because it's hosted live on all of these different organizations' sites and associations and areas. It's all, you never have to worry about updating it, right? So you can grab all of those data layers, which is really great for our smaller operator members as well that may not have access to all of the resources that our larger operators do. So it's wonderful because, we all know in this room that it's just as important to know what's around your pipeline as what's in your pipeline and what your pipeline is made of, right? Because you can't do a true risk analysis unless you know what the impact is going to be around your pipeline as well. Yeah. So we took your question and we just went around the block with it.
And I'll bring it back home with one of my favorite things that we use the NPMS data for, and that's to really improve data accuracy and quality across the PHMSA data collection. So utilizing the unique perspective and what we can see with the pipeline database. and using it and comparing it to other data collections that we're collecting at PHMSA, identifying where the information's maybe not lining up, helping you guys improve some of that data, improving our own data. So that's another big use of the NPMS system within PHMSA. Yeah, no problem.
We have time for another question.
Are we getting off the hook?
There's one down here in the front.
I'm getting too old, yeah. As sort of a follow-on to that, USGS and other sorts of things are available as well. And are those some of the examples you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. We have all of the USGS data. We have any publicly available data, right? What our team has gone in and done is just, munged and grabbed everything that's publicly available and out there and put it in one spot, right? And we did everything so you have, geohazard information, you have waterways, you have rain events, you have, everything. We have a bunch of NOAA information in there as well, right? So just a ton of information that's all publicly available, which, you could go out there and grab all of it. It would take a while. It took us a while. So it's great to have all of that there. And then also not just the operators, right? Like, integrity management service companies as well can use that data to show off their deliverables in a much, higher form and fashion to their operator customers as well. There's a ton of great data out there, right? And this is all publicly available. We didn't pay for anything because we're a nonprofit and we poke.
Any last questions? We have 2 minutes. All right, another round of applause for Monique and Leah, please.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody. We really appreciate y'all coming out. And thank y'all very much. The Clarion team, you guys are killing it. Great job. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move into the Young Achievement Awards segment. I'm going to reposition myself to the podium.